Hey there everyone, welcome to the 29th episode of Daily Word Webs to Build a Cat. So in today's session we'll be taking up the root that Dict, which stands for say, and well, this is a line that which I'm sure the millennials out there and even Gen Y and Gen Z people would be able to relate to, है ना? इसको I think vernacular tongue में इसका different phrase है. क्या कहते हैं? चार लोग क्या कहेंगे? चार आदमी क्या कहेंगे? So yeah, right. So it's basically an expression of what of how society views anything that is new or novel with some suspicion, right? कि हाँ अरे क्या हो रहा है यहाँ पे, मतलब like generally कुछ भी point I think take away तो simple सा होना चाहिए. लोगों का काम है कहना, आपका काम है करना. लोग कहते रहेंगे, आप करते रहिए, है ना? So let's start with the session and we'll stick to vocabulary from this point onwards, I promise. So as I said, the root dict stands for saying something or declaring something, and it has its origin in the Latin language. There are other similar roots, locu or locet. Something I think we discussed these roots in the earlier episodes. They also they stand for saying something. Okay, so let's start with the words now. There's this very interesting movie. I'm not sure if you've watched it. It's quite an old one, black and white mein hai shayad, and it's titled. I think 12 Angry Men. Okay, and if you've not watched this, अगर आपने नहीं देखी है तो like put it in your list. Weekend आने वाले weekend पे आप देख सकते हैं. It's basically about a jury. The whole movie is set in a single room. एक पूरे एक ही single room के अंदर आपका movie set है, and there are 12 members of the jury, right? Jury is basically a group of people who are there to decide on the verdict of a court trial, right? जो court में trial चल रहा है. So in a court trial, the general setup that you see is that there is the prosecution side, there is the defendant side, है ना? जो लोग इल्जाम जो allegation लगा रहे हैं वो prosecution side पे आ गए आपके, and then there is the defendant side जिनके ऊपर convictions लगाए जा रहे हैं, right? Allegations लगाए जा रहे हैं, sorry. And then you have the judge who presides over the whole process to ensure that order is maintained, and that's why they keep saying order, I guess. And then finally you have the jury, right? The jury is a group of certain number of people, generally 12, जो decide करते हैं कि हाँ नहीं यहाँ पे क्या होना चाहिए, है ना? So बाइज्जत बरी किया जाएगा या फिर उनको सजा दी जाएगी, right? So the final judgment that these people, the jury provides for any court trial is known as the verdict. Okay, a formal decision or judgment of jury or judgment of jury in a court trial is the verdict. So yeah, so interesting movie. You can definitely watch. मैं इसके बारे में ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं बताऊँगा, lest I might just let slip any spoilers. So yeah, so let's come back to vocabulary. So yeah, so that's verdict for you. Verdict interestingly comes from the second part obviously comes from dict, that stands for say or declare. The first part of verdict actually comes from ver. Ver वाला जो आपका part है, that comes from a Latin term which is verus, which in turn stands for true, something that is true. Okay, so let me type this. Yeah. So verdict is basically like the final statement that they come up with, the final result that they come up with is considered to be कि हाँ उन्होंने सारी चीज़ों को मद्देनजर रखते हुए they would have obviously come to a solution or a decision which could be considered as true, right? कि हाँ नहीं यही सही है. Okay, maybe the person should be convicted, or should the defendant should not be convicted. So yeah, that's about verdict for you. A few other terms that we can discuss. Acha, by the way, you should probably recall benediction and maledictions. Do you guys recall what those terms were? We discussed these terms in the earlier sessions. Benedictions. What are benedictions are? Bene is the term for something that is good, and diction is the term for like words or say. So benedictions are basically when you're saying something good about someone, or in fact, the more literal meaning of this is benedictions are simply blessings that are cast by probably a priest or probably your elders on you during some auspicious occasions, right? So वो आपके blessings हो गए. ऐसे ही आपके होते हैं maledictions. Maledictions comes from the root ये हम लोग ये words guys I think हम लोग ये पढ़ चुके हैं. मैं एक बार बस आपको revise करा रहा हूँ. Diction obviously comes from dict. The malay part comes from mal, which stands for bad or evil. So a malediction is basically a word or a phrase that is kind of uttered with a intention of bringing about a curse or an or maybe some wrongdoing, right? कुछ तो खराब करने के लिए किसी को कुछ बोला जा रहा है कि हाँ, like the the vernacular version of maledictions would be कि the how people लोग बद्दुआएं देते हैं, right? So those are, that would be the vernacular equivalent of maledictions, right? So that's malediction for you. Another term that we have, I think we have probably gone through this as well, which is contradict. Contradict comes from the first part, contra, comes from against in Latin, right? Against, and dict is obviously to say something. To say something against someone is to contradict their point of view. When you contradict someone's point of view, that means you're saying something that doesn't match with their point of view. चलो आगे चलते हैं. Next we have dictum. A dictum is basically a formal directive. दो मीनिंग हो सकते हैं इसके. One is just a formal directive from an authoritative body, maybe court or some legislative body, or it could also be a general principle on which a person operates, right? For example, you can say that Mahatma Gandhi's dictum was that honesty is the best policy. So that was one general principle on which he operated, right? So that means honesty is the best policy was his dictum to go about his life. Okay, so वो आपका dictum के दो meaning हो सकते हैं यहाँ पे, ठीक है? Then next, we can also you must have heard of dictation, right? We used to have dictation competitions where basically they'll be testing your spelling skills, how properly or accurately can you spell words, right? So dictation would be when the teacher is speaking out loud a set of words and you're supposed to write down those words with accurate spelling. So that is dictation. They are declaring the words, or they are saying the words, they are speaking those words aloud. Similarly, you have dictator. Who's a dictator? A dictator is basically someone who simply declares or says orders. जो बस order देता रहता है और बोलता है कि नहीं ये ऐसा होना चाहिए, ऐसा होना चाहिए, ऐसा होना चाहिए. It's also a form of government which has been found to be detrimental generally, right? Dictatorship is basically when you have just one person who's dictating all that should be done and all that should be carried out, right? People don't really have a say there often. So that's dictatorship, right? So ठीक है, तो ये आपका dictation हो गया, dictatorship हो गया. Then let's come to the next term, which is indictment. What is an indictment? Indictment is basically a formal accusation or charge for a crime, right? To indict someone is basically to accuse them, to formally accuse them of a certain crime. Okay, so that's indictment. You can see how many of these words that relate to the root dict are set in the context of a trial. So yeah, valedictorian. So valedictory speech, right? So valedictorian is basically a student who delivers the farewell speech at the graduation ceremony, right? So school ka graduation ho raha hai, college ka graduation ho raha hai. So generally what will happen is that the student who has probably gotten the best grades, probably काफी बार grades को parameter लिया जाता है, काफी बार they're all around performance, gets to be the valedictorian, right? They give their farewell speech at the graduation ceremony. So that's valedictorian. However, हमेशा जरूरी नहीं है कि valedictory जो term है आपका ये हमेशा उसी sense में use हो. For example, valedictory remarks are remarks that or a valedictory speech can also be a speech that a person gives during their farewell, right? So Roger at his farewell party decided to say a few valedictory words about his colleagues, है ना? तो valedictory words की मतलब जाते समय वो छोड़ के जा रहे हैं उस समय वो अगर कोई चीज बता रहे हैं, so that is valedictory. Those will be their valedictory words. So yeah, that's about valedictorian and valedictory. By the way, the first part of this word valedictory, before we move on to the other word, this comes from velere, V-E-L-E-R-E, which means to be strong, okay, or to be well, okay. So be well or be strong. And now you might be wondering, तो फिर बाद में valedictory का मतलब ऐसे कैसे हो गया कि आप you hear these are like parting words or stuff. So how come it means that? But well, the reason is that, so literally or etymologically अगर हम लोग इसका meaning देखने जाएं, so valedictory would mean that the words where you express people to be well or to be strong, right? And that's essentially what people used to say to each other when they were parting. जब वो मतलब when they are not going to be meeting probably for some time now, they would basically wish each other to be strong and be well, right? अच्छे से रहना, be strong, take care, something on those lines. So and hence it came out to valedictions or valedictory terms or valedictory expressions came out to mean expressions or expressions that would basically be said at the time of parting or at the time of leaving a position, right? So that's how the meaning of this word has evolved. Okay, coming to the next term, which is jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is basically the authority or power to make legal judgments. So you must have read, okay, this particular province falls in the jurisdiction of blah 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 this code, right? Or this, मतलब ये उनके दायरे में आता है, right? So jurisdiction is simply the authority or power to make legal judgments. Okay, so yeah, so that's about it. And also, before we move on to the sentences, by the way, guys, valor में से आप you can probably must have guessed that valor, right? Valor is bravery. This is basically the display of strength, right? Valor is also a term that can be derived from this, and we'll look into this root specifically in the upcoming episodes. So yeah, so that's about that. Let's move on to the sentences now. At this point, guys, you can pause the video and go through the sentence usages of these words, by going through these sentences that have been listed here. And as you can see, these have been sourced from some reliable sources. The credits have been mentioned here. Okay, so you can do that. Here you can again pause the video and test yourself. You just need to find the correct order of sentences which have been shuffled, so that the right sentence, is along with the right word. The words are fixed on the left side. You can also attempt this test via a Google form, the link to which has been provided in the description. So guys, here's the summary of the roots and words that we studied on a primary and secondary basis. What you can do is you can pause the video if you want and try to recall the meaning of these roots and the words that we discussed in the session today. So guys, so far as my profile and credentials are concerned, मैंने उसके लिए अलग से एक वीडियो यहाँ पे बना दिया है, जिससे कि हर बार 2-3 मिनट इसमें ज़ाया ना करने पड़े. फिर भी अगर आपको शॉर्ट में रीड करना है तो यहाँ पॉज करके you can read all of this content about me. But if you go to the video, you'll also get to see the reviews of the courses that I've conducted on other platforms in the past, right? So go on and check that out if you want. So that's about that, and यहाँ पे this link will take you to the next video. And this should take you to the very first video of the series if you're new to the session. Okay, so that's about it. See you in the next one.